Okay, getting that working. Yay. Okay. So then, can I just have you state your name?
It's Lydia Kim,
Lydia Kim. And then, what grade do you teach?
sixth grade,
Sixth grade, and then
elementary school.
okay. And what elementary school?
It's Louise Vandermolen Elementary School.
Mullen Elementary. Okay. So, so I think just to start off is how do you know when you get students who come in who are English language learners? How do you know they're ELL students? Do some of them, are they already identified as them, or do you sometimes as the teacher have to find it yourself?
Okay, well, when we get our class roster, we now nobody tells us, but we are supposed to, in our roster, look at the symbols next to it, and so they have symbols like an EL. So if you click on their name EL, EL is English learner, so it's already been designated. So we can look and we can find what level they are in the ELs. So it doesn't tell you right that you have to kind of click their name. For instance, this year I have English language learners that are level 3. They're up to level 4, and then they graduate after level 4 if they pass a certain test.
Okay. And
So
then
it tells me what level they are at, and yeah.
and then these tests, what kind of tests are they? Are they like a reading test, or is it like an
So all
assessment?
the ELs every year have a test that is given towards the end of the year, like in the springtime, and they're given a test that is just by the count. I think it's by the district. So everyone who is in an EL gets the same test for that grade.
Okay.
And it's different schools do it differently. Like our school, we just have like a teacher who is going to be dedicated to giving that test. So she will have a schedule, and we'll send our kids. They'll be pulled out of that of our class to give the test, and it's got like different components. Like there's a reading and comprehension. There's also an oral language to see if they know how to answer questions in a complete sentence with some details, depending on how they answer. How they interpret stories. So there's sometimes tests where they're given pictures. It depends on the grade level, because obviously they're not going to be, a test for kindergarten is different from a test for sixth grade. So there's a written portion. There is a language, like speaking portion. There's a reading comprehension portion. And if they score high, then they go to the next level, or they could graduate out of it, so that they're no longer designated an EL.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for the students, like before they're even called ELs, like how do you when you get like a new student who maybe is an EL, how do you make sure that they do get the assessments taken to see where they're at with their reading and writing skills?
Yeah, so most districts have, like, when you register, you have to put a little check mark for, like if English is their first language or if they have another language. So a lot of kids from kindergarten will have it as an EL if their parents check that their English was not their primary language. But then as they come in and we do, sort of like just a casual, assessment, we could tell if they, they speak pretty fluently. And then you just give them a test to see if they're going to graduate out of it. Several years ago, I got a student from China who was, let's see, it was her second year. So last year, the year before me, fifth grade, she was new to coming to the United States. So Some things are really obvious because they can't speak. It says it in the registration form. So that's pretty obvious. If it's not obvious, and we suspect that they have a language barrier, then we have to give that test, which is, like I said, something that's made up from the district, not something that we make up.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now I kind of want to move to the my questions towards like kids with disabilities. Because there's also like kids who have difficulties with speaking, whether maybe they're autistic or just have hearing impairments. Have you ever worked with children like that in your classroom, or have ever experienced a student with those issues?
Well, for sure. I think every classroom has students with special needs or disabilities. A lot of kids these days, in a class, like I have a class usually of 30 kids. On the average, I will have like four. I will have four kids that have some sort of special needs, whether it's a processing issue or attention deficit, or I've had kids with autism, different spectrums, and so when they come, yeah, we have like a folder that has information on what they were designated as, what is their disability, and they come with an educational plan, which is the IEP, Individualized Education Plan. It comes with a whole team of usually like resource teacher, speech therapists, sometimes occupational therapists, um, things like that. So it comes with a plan, what their goal is for that year or for the next 6 months. And so yeah,
Mm.
yeah, we've had that.
Now, I know with technology, like that's always advancing and it's always growing, and stuff. With children who are learning or who do have disabilities that do affect their language and literacy, do you guys sometimes use maybe different types of technology to help them process the information that you're teaching or that they're learning to help them move forward? Or and if so, what kind of technology is it, and what's it called?
Well, for instance, I had a student with autism last year who struggled with organization and um, like fine motor skills, meaning like it was very difficult for him to um, write and copy notes or even copy homework. Or if he wrote like an essay, like handwritten, it was difficult for me to read. So he had his own laptop. So kids have access to laptops, but not a personal one. So he had a personal one that the district gave, where it had a camera function. So instead of writing notes, he could take pictures of notes if they were projected, or if the homework is written on the whiteboard, he could take pictures of it. He could always have like that modification to type his answers on a lot of assignments instead of writing it in his notebook. So that was like an accommodation and modification that we made for his, fine motor skills. And then in terms of like special needs with attention and things like that, I don't think we had necessarily tools, but my student with autism who had like bursts of like getting upset at himself and used to bang his head when he would get upset at himself, or let's say he was very disappointed that he didn't get an A or a B on a test, that he used to hurt himself. And so we had a team of behavior teachers, coaches, who made little charts for, it was like a color-coded chart, I think, for when he's angry, what does he do? He has to count to 10. There's little steps, that he can always walk away and he can take a break. He had also, because of his attention deficit, he had a special chair. I don't know what it's called. It looks like an exercise ball. He could bounce on it.
Mm-hmm.
So he had that to help him get his wiggles out. So, I mean, that those are the things that come to the top of my head. But it usually, the main thing is we as teachers try what we know as a strategy to help that student focus academically or help behave. But if we run out of ideas or our strategy doesn't work, we have a whole team. It's never that I have to solve it by myself. That's why these special needs kids, it's best if they have um, an IEP plan, so we can go over, well, did they make their needs? How did their behavior improve? You know, how are their grades doing? Are they turning in assignments? Things like that. And if it doesn't, then we can come up with new strategies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, the how kids get there, if I get a new kid who doesn't have a file and I see all these concerns, I have to make observation and jot it down. And what we have, the first initial thing that teachers do is call a meeting with the parent and let them know of these concerns and have what we call a student study team, or SST. And with that, it's again a team of people, meaning admin, me, usually a special ed teacher, a parent, that meets together before they're like designated with any, you know, like disabilities or anything. And just to say, hey, we see, for example, if somebody is getting an F because they never hand in assignments. So we say, well, we see that this student is not handing in assignments. We kind of have a discussion, a conference of what's happening. It happened actually yesterday. We made it called the academic support conference. I had a conference Zoom with a mom because her son did not hand me one assignment since the school year. 68 assignments he did not do.
Ooh.
And prior to that meeting, I would let him know. I was in contact with the parent, but then the parent would reply with there was a situation, a health crisis that his dad had, and so there was there were circumstantial things that prevented him from that got in the way of him focusing. So we understood that and we waited. And so then my next step was, well, if all this is happening and affecting him emotionally, then he should see some counselor, because the mom also had issues in the past. It seemed like more than just academics, this student really needed to just have some emotional, mental support. So then I had to fill out a form, hand it into the school counselor. The counselor was able to have one free session without the parent permission, and found out more information and agreed with me that this student really could use counseling and has low self-esteem and all these other things. So it's the whole child perspective. How can a kid focus on work if they have all these other things happening at home? So like I said, it's a team of people. The teacher has to notice something that's not right, investigate, ask questions to the parent. So before assuming anything, contact the parent. And then the trouble was, I got that ball rolling, but the parent, the mom, has issues of her own. She couldn't get her act together to even sign the permission slip. And even though they had good reasons. Now the dad's doing better. He was coming back on Zoom. He had missed a whole month of Zoom. So now he was improving and coming to this, class Zooms, but he still wasn't handing anything in, and he didn't participate. So, after so many tries and so many strategies, I decided to just meet with my admin. My admin vice principal gave me a form for us to have an official conference. So then I actually physically went to their house and met outside and said, look, here are 68 assignments that are missing. However, it's unreasonable for him to make that up at this point because there's only like 14 days left of grading.
Mm-hmm.
So we reduced it to what he can handle. We reduced 68 to 14 of what I thought was really important. And then I also had the mom right there sign the counseling paper, sign the education, plan, say this is our plan now. The plan is he's going to do 14 now, and the goal was for him to do 2 assignments a day. So like breaking it down, and then saying, and if he has trouble, I'm available for 1 to 2 during office hours. So even though he knew that he didn't show up, so mom reiterated that to my student, and yesterday was the first day he's handed in 2 assignments. So it's like it takes a lot on the teacher to pursue like what would be a good educational plan to help whatever concerns. It's like sometimes it's not just, oh, they're not smart enough, oh, they don't have schools parent support. Well, if they don't, then what can teachers do to give that support? It's really investigating to figure out like why is the student not thriving or not even just doing the bare minimum, like what's going on in here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of, addressing special circumstances and needs to. And now what I see with this student, I feel like this student does have learning disabilities. And I see that the teachers, that doesn't have an education plan. So I'm going to have to start on that student study team where we're supposed to have 3 meetings on it before he gets tested. So he can't just say, oh, I suspect he has ADHD and get tested. The way it works is the teacher has to have tried all these things, and if they don't work, then he could get tested.
Mm-hmm. And with this particular student that you were talking about, when you test him or you're evaluating him before you actually put him in the assessment, do you look at past works and writing and how he's comprehending information, and like how is he when he is answering stuff using like his language? Is he doing okay? Is that something that you really focus on?
Well, yeah. So for 6th grade, the way we see where they're at in their reading or math, there is a general standardized test that the district recommended for us to use. It's a computerized program called iReady. And so it's a diagnostic test, and after he finishes the test, it will say what reading level he is. Now the problem is he has to sit and do it. Usually when we're in school, we could enforce that, but he's at home, he hasn't even done it yet. But I could look at previous year, like to see where was he, and so he was very below grade level previous years as well. So if it's a pattern of year after year, it's not special circumstance, year after year of really falling behind, then I can, use that as my evidence. But normally that's what we would use is a comprehensive diagnostic test in math and reading to designate, okay, this student is falling 2 years behind, because that's how they get special services, is that the student has to be at least 2 years behind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Student 2 years. Okay. Awesome. So then that kind of brings me kind of coming back to English learners then, because I know especially in this day and age there's a lot of students who come from homes who they speak multiple languages and stuff, or they do have disabilities that affect their language and literacy. So that kind of brings me to, have you seen like some students, they speak English really well, but then when they're writing it, their English kind of doesn't look as how it talks, like for example, if when they're speaking to you they can say I see Jane run, but on a paper it's I Jane and run, like it's not matching up to how they speak. Do you see that a lot in EL students?
Yeah, what I see in their writing is that the verb and the subjects don't match. Sometimes, they'll have a plural subject with a singular, like, verb. Like, they'll say, they runs home, instead of, like, ran home, or, something like that. So, well, with EL students, because if they're designated EL by state mandate, teachers are supposed to have them give direct instruction for their English language, like 30 minutes a day. Yeah, which is challenging because you have the whole class. So normally what we would do is have collaboration. So I remember in the beginning I told you they're they're designated what level they are. So even if I pull a small group, if I have someone who just came from China versus somebody who, has been in the United States but just comes from a home that speaks Spanish all the time and so has grammar issues. If someone's level 1, it's hard to do small group with 1 and 3. So what we used to do before this year is like have, let's say, if I have like 4 6th grade teachers, have a designated EL time for half an hour where the rest of the class is reading, silent reading, or working on something independent, and we pull those kids and work on their grammar, their reading comprehension, and all that. So maybe the next door teacher, 6th grade, will have levels 1 and 2, and I will have levels 3 and 4, or 3, and then somebody else will have 4. They'll just kind of like have all of 6th grade kind of rotate, you know what I mean? Of just the EL students.
Okay.
So, so we do that, and then, but for right now, even though I have a designated time, I have 2 students who are EL, they're level 3, so they're not, new to the language. They just have like grammar and comprehension difficulties. They were supposed to come on, they're half an hour before everyone else comes on Zoom. Well, and that happened one time, and they keep forgetting, or they don't come because nothing could be enforced in Zoom. It's whether they feel like coming, or they do, or not. So it hasn't really worked out consistently this year, but what I continue to do is give grammar lessons for everyone, and then when they do writing, I give them a lot of feedback. Okay, I highlight the text and put a little comment, which you can do on Zoom. Not Zoom, Google Classroom. Like I can highlight their writing and then put a little note. Okay, this sentence, you need to correct the punctuation or grammar, or your verb doesn't match your subject, or so on and so forth. They could also come during office hours, and then I help them with it. So it's offered. Not everyone takes advantage. Yeah.
And let me see. Another thing that I'm also curious about is, have you ever had a student or multiple students who who identified as maybe bilingual, has a disability, and when they speak English, or when they write English, it's in varieties? Like, have you ever had somebody who's like all 3? And if so, how did you work with that student?
Yeah, oftentimes actually it does. Sometimes the ELs also have learning disabilities, and then you don't know what caused what, but something is not right, even if, let's say, they are also having some processing difficulties in their own language. So if, let's say, a passage was in Spanish and they still couldn't understand it, then it's not a language barrier. You know what I mean? So it all depends on if they have designated support. If they already were diagnosed with something that gives them extra resource, that means there's a resource teacher, a specialist, like a special education specialist, that used to pull those kids out. So if I gave an essay, a writing assignment, like they had to do an argument essay, it's usually a 5-paragraph essay. That's difficult for them, whether you're an English learner or if you have learning disabilities. So they would help them break it down, and we also have 2 aides that rotate around upper grades. So we had 2 ladies who would come and give us about half an hour a week to help and sit with those students and just help translate things, or work with them specifically on whatever assignment they needed extra help on, and they could just talk to each other, in English and in Spanish. The unfortunate thing is they were only Spanish speaking. I didn't have anybody that did Chinese. Like I had a Chinese student and she didn't have that. So we just have to use Google Translate on my phone. Yeah. So, so if they're designated with a learning disability, then it's easier because they qualify for a lot of services. If they're not yet designated, then I have to be their advocate to fight for all those services.
So you, as the teacher, you have to.
I have to make documents, observations, call a meeting, do that. I think I told you the study SST, which is like a student study team that does fill out concerns academic that I see, what's the plan to improve before they are like tested.
Which actually then brings me to my next topic, which is actually the different assessments, because there's a lot that I'm learning and still learning about is the different assessments to help students with disabilities or RELs get the necessary help that they need. So I was wondering, do you know anything about CELDTs or LPACs? Do you know?
The LPAC is the test that they take for the ELs. That's, I think I told you there's like a standard one. Yeah, so that's the one that they take.
And then what about the other one? I'm
not familiar with that. Maybe a special ed teacher might be.
Okay, so but you are familiar with the LPAC, and that's the one where you said it was they have to do the written assessment and the reading assessment, and how? Sorry, I'm trying to like word this question so it's not confusing. Assessments. Sorry, lost my train of thought. So when you take these types of state assessments, how and like you get the results back, how do you implement what they need to work on into your classroom?
There's usually a chart. I mean, if you want to look at it, you can even look at, if you just look at LPAC, they'll have a chart for this is what they need. LPAC resources, training tests. So they will have suggestions what they need. Like for level 3, I need to definitely work on their reading comprehension, sentence formations, and it's a higher level of actually all the things that I need to work for level 3 is all the things I'm already doing for 6th grade. I just have to have them pay special attention to elaboration, like if you give me a reason why you're against zoos, then what examples do you have? And which is what good writers do anyway. So if you are level 1, they're just going to work on just some fluency. They need to learn the language. So it's different things for different levels. And so I mean, we all had to take courses becoming a teacher on understanding the English learner. But once you become a teacher, it's more hands-on. So like I can just see with my students right now who are level 3s, they might have great ideas, but they don't know how to really express them in a very cohesive, articulate way in writing. Right. So that's where like a writing conference one-on-one, or I do mini lessons for the whole class. I'll do a mini lesson on, like sentence structure and avoiding run-ons, things like this. But then I'll do a one-on-one writing conference with them, where I'll just take them aside and be like, okay, now go ahead and read your paper, and where do you see that you need improvement in sentence structure? And then I'll give them feedback on what I think it is. So.
Now this is completely up to you, because I am curious about what an LPAC assessment looks like. Would it be okay if you sent me one and what it looks like via email? Now if you don't want to, it's okay. I completely understand.
No, I don't have access to it right now. I'm not the one that gives it, but you can go on LPAC, and they have practice and training things on there.
Oh, okay, even better. So LPAC.
Yeah.
Online. Okay, I will make sure to look at that then. I was gonna say, because I'm like, I don't know if you even have access to it from what you're telling me, but okay, so I will just go online and look at that. So then we're kind of coming towards the end of the interview, so I just have a few kind of, I guess, ending questions. So one of my big ones that I was thinking about is because right now with COVID, everything's kind of really strange. It's weird. We're trying to use technology to teach our students and stuff. How is this affecting you as a teacher right now, trying to use Zoom and trying to teach your students in general?
Well, I feel like a student because I'm learning a lot. I'm not. This is my first time ever using Google Classroom, so I feel like a student in terms of I'm learning a lot. And just like a student, I'm gonna learn as much as I want to learn. And so I think that teachers who have the growth mindset to want to grow in this area and to make it better, even though it's something I'm not good at, I think like will do better in this kind of situation. But teachers who are like, I'm too old for this, this is not what I signed up for, if there's that kind of attitude, then it's going to go negatively.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I feel like I'm trying to make the most out of it. I've already taken like 14 hours of workshops during my vacation time and learned a lot. And I make mistakes too. The other day, I was trying to have them do this thing called Jamboard. I don't know if you heard of a Jamboard.
Yes, I've used those. I've used those in my
class.
I
love those. Well, the first time I ever used it, the kids couldn't join the link because I didn't realize there's a setting for editor, whether they could view it or they could be part of it and be editor. So the first time I used it, it didn't work, even though I had spent a lot of time like making that Jamboard. So I told the kids, you know what, kids, Mrs. Kim can't figure it out today, but I'm going to learn how, just like I tell you guys, we make mistakes and we learn from it. The next day I figured it out and then I did it and it worked and the kids got excited and so on and so forth. And so I'm incorporating like what I'm preaching to them to myself and try to make it more engaging. Like I know that it's really hard to keep their attention, so I give them brain breaks, and during our brain breaks, kids go and bring their pets, and they show it on Zoom. They're trying to, we have fun Fridays, make it fun. We wear silly hats. We do like little exercises on. It's a website, Go Noodle, and they have dances. So we do that. We do games, but then I also break it then into small groups. One of the advantages I think of Zoom is that I could put them in small groups without the fear of them spreading the virus. Whereas if I was in person, I cannot put them in groups because then they'd be too close to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So I have reading groups. They go and do reading groups. I have math groups. They go into groups of 3 or 4, and they try to solve together collaboratively.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, that was another thing. First time I tried breakout room, it didn't work because I didn't put it in the setting. And I'm like, oh, well, happen again, kids, tomorrow. For sure, we'll do the breakout rooms. So, like, they stuck by. I praise them, when they do. The difficulty thing is that it's not equitable. It's not equal for all students. There are glitches, technical glitches with internet, poor internet quality, and so kids who have it all, have support from parents who got like special, wires so their internet's better, or they increase their internet browser ability. They're doing fine. They have a great laptop. But kids who don't have that kind of support, it's like they've logged on, and all of a sudden they disappear because their internet's not working or something had happened to them. And I feel bad for them, honestly, I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what else I can do for them,
Mm-hmm.
So we don't require them to come on Zoom for attendance. If they do some sort of work, they do, but they have to come on Zoom because that's where I'll do the teaching. If they didn't get the teaching, how are they going to do the rest of it?
Right.
So it's been challenging because I'm constantly mindful of kids who maybe have poor internet. So then I have to put some of my lessons on videos in my Google Classroom, videotape myself explaining something, or somebody else has a math lesson on equivalent fractions. If they missed my Zoom, they could look at that video and figure it out. So
Mm-hmm.
it's about, I think, how resourceful a teacher can be and learn and then do it. So I think it's getting better. I think that the negative part is just how it's very limiting for kids who are falling behind. There's nothing I can do to make them get on Zoom. There's nothing I can do to make them be more engaged.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Um, and then with this whole Zoom and obviously the whole distance learning and keeping social distancing, um, how has that affected your students who need that extra help, like the emergent bilinguals or the students with disabilities? How has that affected them? Has it affected them negatively or
Hmm.
positively?
I think it's just like if they use all their resources, then I've seen some actually thrive through remote learning because I offer one-on-one help. So if they take advantage of my office hours, I've had kids now come every day office, and those kids, out of the ones that come usually, about one of them is an EL learner, and she just loves working with other kids. So we've created a homework club, so kids who I have two that are only children that like to come, and they get disappointed if like nobody else is there, and so they have that social outlet to go into a breakout room. I let them. I said, are you here because you want to work with a friend, or are you here because you have a question? And some kids will have a question. Some kids, I just want to work with a friend, and then I'll put them in that breakout room and check on them once in a while, make sure they're not doing anything inappropriate. And so it's great. Today I had
Mm-hmm.
like 5 kids come, and the other day I had 6 kids come, and it's great because kids who need extra help will come and say, I don't know how to do this assignment, and then I can do that with them while the rest of them go to the breakout room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But again, that's if they come.
yeah, if they come.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's like it during this time it's very hard and it's like you as a teacher you're trying to figure this out and then on
Yeah.
top of that it's okay, I'm trying to give the students who need the extra help as much as possible, but
Mhm.
sometimes it's not possible because they don't have the resources. So
Mhm.
so I'm definitely seeing that and then on top of that I think altogether how is it that you as a teacher when you're trying to help these students who are ELs and stuff how do you work with the parents especially with this whole I gotta keep social distancing and distance learning and I gotta use Zoom, how has that affected you as a teacher trying to work with parents and their students?
Um, I'm not really sure what you're asking because
Sorry, let
so
me
I
reword that
you're
question.
so are you asking me do I communicate with the parents of yells?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Um, I don't really communicate with the ELs in a different way. I mean, if there's announcements from school and there's LPAC meetings, our school has monthly meetings for parents to give them support. I pass along that information. It's both in English and Spanish.
Mhm.
I do pass that along. I have a Remind app that has alerts, but it's in English. I think the advantage is in 6th grade, like kids could kind of like be responsible for themselves.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, but I have a student who's been not coming to Zoom and not handing in assignments, and she's an EL. And when I call home, the mom doesn't speak Spanish. So then, how do I communicate? Well, we have office staff who are bilingual. So then I've asked them to please call for me and ask what is going on in Spanish, and then please let them know that it's very important to, turn in assignments. So that's happened where the office ladies will call and then we document like, okay, we reached out to them and then they have all these reasons and we seem to have fixed the problem and yet it's still happening.
Mhm. And
So
unfortunately, you can only do so much.
exactly.
So,
Exactly. But a teacher still has to document it. Like I write dates on, okay, on this date, the office lady Laura called this mom. They talked, and this is the reason she gave why her daughter wasn't coming. For example, like she said that she had to share her device with 2 other siblings. Well, the district said they're going to give the device, but they were lacking, right? So
mhm.
then come to find out she never filled out a survey. You're supposed to fill out a survey.
Mhm.
She doesn't, so she's not tech savvy. She doesn't know about the survey, even though there were so many blasts. So then the office staff actually filled it out for her while she was on the phone,
Mm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty then. I think we're gonna end it there. I think you've answered all of my questions.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, this is a very interesting conversation. I really enjoyed it. I have like thousands more questions, but I think we'll end it here. So,
Okay.
because it's like we're almost hitting the 40 like 5 minute mark. So, but but yeah, but other than that, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome, Amanda. Are you interviewing anyone else?
I know I have to do another interview, but it's like a teacher or a parent interview, and I think I'm gonna interview my mom
Yeah.
for the parent one because I'm going.
Yeah.
Oh, she'd be a great person to interview.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
But
Yeah, it's a good idea